The moment that changed everything. What if I told you that in one single week, the tennis world experienced something so emotional, so unexpected, so completely unbelievable, that fans around the world were left speechless? We're not talking about a championship match. We're not talking about a record broken on a scoreboard. We're talking about something far more powerful than that. We're talking about a young girl from the Philippines, standing in a press room, completely breaking down in tears, because her childhood hero had just told her 5 words that changed her life forever. This is that story. And trust me, you are not ready for it. Before we dive in, I want to be honest with you. When I first heard about everything that happened this week, I thought people were exaggerating. I thought maybe the internet was blowing things out of proportion the way it always does. But then I watched the footage. I read the reports. I followed every single piece of the story, from beginning to end. And I realized, no, this one is real. This one actually happened. And this one deserves to be told properly. Because what unfolded this week wasn't just a tennis story. It was a human story. A story about dreams, about legends, about a torch being passed from one generation to the next in the most emotional way imaginable. It had everything: tears, controversy, wedding photos that broke the internet, comeback rumors that refused to die, and a mentorship moment so powerful it may have permanently changed the career of one of the most exciting young players alive today. So settle in, get comfortable, because this one hits different. Let's talk about the off-season for a moment. Normally, when the tennis season winds down, things go quiet. Players disappear on vacation. They post beach photos. They rest their bodies, reset their minds, and slowly prepare for what comes next. That's how it's supposed to work. That is absolutely not what happened this time. Instead, the tennis world exploded. And at the center of that explosion, as they have been for over 2 decades, were the Williams sisters. Venus, Serena. 2 names that don't just belong to tennis. 2 names that belong to history. But the most emotional story of this entire week, the one that left fans reaching for tissues, begins somewhere else entirely. It begins in the Philippines. It begins with a 20-year-old young woman who has spent her entire life dreaming of a moment exactly like the one she was about to experience. Her name is Alex Eala. And if you don't know that name yet, you will never forget it after today. Here's what makes Alex Eala's story so special. She didn't come from a country with a long tennis tradition. She didn't grow up with access to the world's best facilities from the beginning. She came from a nation where tennis was never the dominant sport, where football, basketball, and boxing captured the national imagination, and she chose to carry the Philippine flag into one of the most competitive arenas on the planet anyway. And not only did she choose it, she thrived. Training at the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, Eala spent years grinding in relative silence, improving every aspect of her game, building the mental toughness required to survive at the highest level. And little by little, she started making history. She became the first Filipino player to win a Grand Slam singles match. She broke into the WTA Top 50. She became a movement, not just an athlete, because every time she stepped onto the court, she carried the dreams of 110 million people with her. Think about that weight for a second. Every serve, every forehand, every match point, played not just for herself, but for an entire nation that had been waiting decades for a moment like this. That is the woman who walked onto the court at the ASB Classic. That is the woman who is about to come face to face with living legend Venus Williams. And that is the woman whose life was about to change forever. On paper, the doubles match looked completely one-sided. Alex Eala and her partner Iva Jovic, 2 young rising stars, against Venus Williams and her partner Elena Vesnina, a 7-time Grand Slam champion, one of the most respected names the sport has ever produced. A woman who had been winning matches before Eala was even born. Every logical prediction pointed in one direction: experience over youth, legend over rising star, the established force versus the hopeful newcomer. But tennis has never cared much about logic. Because when the final point was played, when the match was over, it was Eala and Jovic who came out on top. The young guns had done it. They had defeated a Williams. But here's the thing. As incredible as the result was, the match itself was not the story that day. The real story happened immediately after the final point. Because instead of simply shaking hands and walking off the court, instead of doing what most players do after a victory, Alexandra Eala stopped. She paused. And she did something that the entire tennis world instantly recognized as genuine, rare, and deeply moving. She publicly expressed her admiration for Venus Williams, not as a defeated opponent, not as a formality, but as a legend who had inspired her to believe, from thousands of miles away in the Philippines, that she belonged on this stage. It didn't feel scripted. It didn't feel rehearsed. It felt like a young woman finally getting to say thank you to the person whose example had made her journey possible. And that moment, that single human moment, set off a chain reaction nobody saw coming. Serena Williams was watching. The greatest champion the sport has ever known. 23 Grand Slam titles, a legacy that transcended tennis and touched every corner of the sporting world, saw what Alexandra Eala had done. She saw the tribute. She felt the sincerity of it. And Serena Williams, who has never been someone to stay silent when something moves her, responded. Publicly. 5 words. Thank you, Ella. Just 5 words. But the impact of those 5 words hit the tennis world like a thunderbolt. Because Serena Williams doesn't do this for everyone. She doesn't reach across the digital space to personally acknowledge every young player who compliments her family. When Serena speaks, people listen. When Serena notices you, it means something different. Something bigger. And then, as if the public message wasn't already enough, reports began circulating that Serena had gone even further. That she had personally invited Alexandra Eala to a private one-on-one meeting. Just the two of them. The speculation that followed was immediate and electric. Was this a mentorship in the making? Was the greatest player in history about to take a young Filipino star under her wing? Was there a collaboration being discussed? Something bigger than encouragement? Something that could reshape the trajectory of Eala's career entirely? Nobody knew for certain. And that mystery made everything burn even hotter. But what everyone did know, what nobody could deny, was what those 5 words really meant beneath the surface. They meant, I see you. I know what you're building. And I believe you belong here. From Serena Williams, that is everything. And then came the press conference. Alexandra Eala stood in front of reporters, cameras pointed at her from every direction, microphones waiting for her response. She was supposed to be composed, professional. She was supposed to answer questions calmly, the way athletes are trained to do. But the moment she started speaking about Serena's message, something broke open inside her. Not just a few tears. Not a quick emotional moment that passed in seconds. She completely broke down. She tried to breathe. She tried to wipe her face and push through. She tried to keep answering questions the way she was supposed to. But the tears just kept coming, because what she was experiencing in that moment was impossible to contain behind a professional mask. She was 20 years old, standing in an international press room, processing the reality that the woman she had grown up watching, whose matches she had studied, whose greatness she had admired from the other side of the world, had personally reached out to her. Think about what that actually means. The same champion whose matches a young girl in the Philippines once watched late at night, dreaming of someday being part of that world. The same icon who made millions of people believe that impossible things were possible. That icon had looked across the entire tennis world, across all the rising stars, all the talented young players, and had chosen to say her name. That is not something you absorb quietly. That is not something you smile politely about and move on from. The press room went completely silent. Not the uncomfortable kind of silence, the kind that fills a room when something deeply human is unfolding and everyone present understands they are witnessing something they will never forget. And then one by one, people began to applaud. Not for a trophy, not for a performance, but because everyone in that room understood the magnitude of what they were watching. A dream, becoming real, in real time, right in front of them. There are moments in sport that go beyond the scoreboard, beyond rankings, beyond trophies, beyond statistics. Alexandra Eala didn't win a Grand Slam this week. She didn't break a world record. But she did something every young dreamer will understand completely. She showed up, she competed, she honored the people who inspired her, and in doing so, caught the attention of the greatest the sport has ever seen. The passing of the torch doesn't always happen in a final. Sometimes it happens in a doubles match at a smaller tournament. Sometimes it happens in 5 words posted online. Sometimes it happens in a press room through tears while the world watches and quietly understands that something important just shifted. The Philippines has waited a long time for a player who doesn't just participate on the world stage, but truly belongs on it. Not just in rankings, not just in results, but in the hearts of everyone who loves this game. Alexandra Eala is that player. And something tells me we have only just begun to watch what she is capable of. Subscribe and stay with this story, because the best chapters are still being written.